going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. Now we're gonna take you through a nice Prismatic Warlock build using the Spirit of Filament, which got a nice little buff, as well as the Spirit of Vesper, because we're gonna be using our exotic Warlock bond. If you don't have your exotic Warlock bond, be using your Secant Filaments, which are actually exotic boots for our Void subclass, if you will, or using, like I have right here, the Devouring Rift. While you have a Void super emitting, Void empowering Rift will give you Devour. Dealing damage by you or your allies from within the Empower Rift can stun overload champions, plus defeating targets while Devour is active grants us class ability energy. But like I said, I am personally using the Solipsism, which is our exotic class item. So again, we have a Spirit of Filaments, so casting that Empowering Rift grants us Devour. Defeating targets while Devour is active grants us class ability, and then we also have that Spirit of Vesper, so Rifts periodically release Arc Shockwaves. So very good little combination in my opinion, because we want to pop that and then stand in our Rift as much as possible to get back our class ability, to have Devour proc as much as we can, and Empowering is obviously going to give us even more damage on our weapons. So inside of our Prismatic Warlock, I am using our Nova Bomb, so we can use either our exotic class item or our exotic boots. Totally up to you. Technically, if you are using the exotic class item, you can use any of our other supers, but if you're using Secant Filaments, make sure you throw on your Void super. Obviously, we're using our Empowering Rift, so we can get that to proc with everything that we got going on. Balance Glide, Arcane Needle, and Vortex Grenade on this bad boy is what I was using. Just felt right for me. I went with Lightning Surge so we can blink forward, jolting targets, just adding to this build. Very good. Plus, we're going to get this back. We're going to be able to have 3 of these because of Arcane Needle over here. And then I went with Helion as well, so we could get that Mortar of the Scorch going on. So we're going to get Jolt on this build, Devour on this build. We're going to have Unravel on this build, as well as everything that I talked about in the Secant Filaments, getting our class ability back, doing some damage as well. Very good little combination. Plus, we're popping our Rift a bunch with this build. Fragments that we are going to be using is rapidly defeating targets with light damage is going to give us melee energy. Rapidly defeating targets with darkness is going to give us grenade energy. Very good with that facet of balance right there. Facet of awakening, or rapidly defeating targets with light, darkness, or our super is going to generate elemental pickups of the matching type. So for us, we're going to be able to get a bunch of different things. Void breaches on this, fire sprites, some ionic traces, as well as tangles. So a lot going on with that. Facet of honor, collecting any of those elemental pickups or tangles that we are creating helps to give us transcendent energy of the same type. So we're going to be able to calm a transcendent very quick with this build. Our arc grenade is going to jolt. Our void grenade is going to weaken with dominance. So we're going to be using that void grenade right here. So another way where we're going to be able to do more damage on those champions, bosses, etc. because of the weakening. And then last but not least, a facet of courage. Arc, solar, void abilities do increase damage to targets affected by darkness debuffs, and we are getting that with Unravel. Plus, you will see why with our artifact that we got on and the weapons, we're going to be able to get this to proc very easily. When we move on to our stats as well as mods that we are going to be using, we went with triple 100s in resilience, recovery, and strength, so we can slide around with that melee, use our unraveling, jolt, etc., using our class ability with recovery, and then resilience, of course, just to stay alive. Definitely the best to keep this above 80 for anything in that endgame content. 100 is definitely the best though. Now for our mods, we're going to go with Strand Siphon, Harmonic Siphon, Powerful Friends. So a very nice little combination of just giving us a bunch of orbs of power, our little internal feedback loop on our abilities that we're going to have with Focusing Strike, Momentum Transfer, Impact Induction, just basically getting our grenade, getting our melee, as well as our class ability by doing damage with our grenade, melee, etc. Totally up to you, depending on the content you are going into. For the GM, it's this week at least that I did it with the Hypercurrent, lots of arc, lots of void. Totally up to you, like I said, up to the activity, I should say, whatever burn is going on. For me, I went with Void Weapon Surge on this bad boy with time dilation, so it's going to do a good amount of damage with our void weapons that we have for a good amount of time. Powerful Attraction with Bomber. When we throw down our Rift, we're going to get back a good chunk of our grenade energy. energy, or I should say a little chunk, not a good chunk, and then all of those orbs of power around us are going to come right to us, which is super nice to keep up our void weapon surge, which we are using for a specific reason on this build. Now y'all might be wondering, with our weapons, we only got one void weapon, so why are we using void weapon surge? Well, we're going to be using our collective obligation, and this thing is pretty solid, so we're going to leech void debuffs on this. So suppressed, weaken, volatile. Once it's charged, we can swap firing modes and actually do damage that applies that debuff. So with this season, we have a lot of volatility going around, as well as some weakening on this build, so we're going to be able to give both of these out with ease just by getting defeats with this weapon. So I wanted this to have as much damage and be used as much as possible. We're also going to have that umbral sustenance on this. This weapons magazine is automatically reloaded when we gain Devour, Overshield, or Invisibility. For us, Devour is going to be procced consistently, so very good for getting this thing just automatically reloaded because of all that Devour that we're going to have on it. Now we're going to be using that scatter signal with the overflow controlled burst on this. This will help us to stun our unstoppable champions, plus you will see in a second, because of our artifact, this as well as our heavy weapon are going to be able to create a bunch of different perks for us, or I should say give that void debuffs on targets with unraveling rounds. But pro Memora, we got ourselves right here with Envious Bait and Switch, just adding to the damage output of this build, as well as stunning overload champions. So little good feedback loop between all of these stunning champions and applying a bunch of void debuffs. Now when we move on to our artifact right here in the Tablet of Ruin, obviously we're going to have unstoppable fusion with our overload machine guns that we are going to be using, plus volatile marksman. Rapid void precision hits and defeats is going to grant us those volatile rounds. Super nice, like I said, to have with our pulse rifle, because innately that's going to be able to absorb those and dish it back out with its exotic perks. Unraveling orbs right here is what I was talking about. So our fusion rifle as well as our LMG is going to give us unraveling rounds, which is a strand debuff, so all of our void arc, all of those abilities are going to do a little bit more damage. Hold the line. Well, we're surrounded. Machine gun final blow. Sorry, I don't even know what that was. Gain increased reload speed and stability. They also heal us, so very good for endgame or even that nether activity. This does get procced every so often, even though the nether is very stingy with its healing. King's Vestige, defeating powerful Taken. Load our weapons with Taken energy. Our next time we do damage, we give that 3-round burst, if you will, of Taken Seekers that disrupt and exhaust targets, so very good with the overload again. Dreadful Finisher, so we can get a bunch of ammo for our fusion rifle. Malignant Harvest, rapidly applying volatility, causes our next instance of void to have that weakening burst. Like I said, that'll play right back into our pulse rifle that we have, which can absorb those void debuffs and then redish it out with an alternate reload. Horde Shuffle, unraveling and defeating those are going to give us threadlings, so playing into unraveling orbs and both of our strand weapons. With last but certainly not least, when we do sustained damage with that heavy ammo, we're going to get damage resistance as well as increased melee and grenade regeneration, so very good in my personal opinion to keep all of those ups. And our heavy machine gun is pretty solid on this build with that particle reconstruction, so again, our fusion rifle going to be able to deal out some more damage because of this perk right here, just adding to the DPS side of this build, because we can use our fusion rifle, get particle reconstruction to proc, throw out weakening from our pulse rifle that we got, throw our super, as well as then use bait and switch on our LMG. So a lot of different facets that we can use for the damage side of things. Survivability, we got Devour going on. Yes, we are going to be using an Empowering Rift plus the weapon surges for our void, but I promise getting through a GM, nothing too crazy about it with this build. Getting through that nether, like I said, with healing aspects, always having Devour to proc is pretty solid, even though Devour not really working in the nether, but you can see in other content where Devour is able to work. It is disgusting. Healing's disgusting. Damage is disgusting, and it's a pretty easy build. Secant Filaments is super nice in my personal opinion. Like I said, if you don't have the exotic class item like I do or anything like that, just throw on your Secant Filament boots. Basically the same thing. The only addition that we're getting for this build is I have that Arc Vesper on, so we are going to get some Ionic Traces to proc, etc. if we're up close and personal with enemies. So nothing too crazy about having it in the exotic class item, but most people can get that Secant Filaments with ease, so throw those on instead. But again, appreciate you guys for always coming back to the channel. Means a lot to me, means a lot to the channel. Don't be afraid to like, subscribe, tap that bell if you have not. Means a lot to the channel, and you guys will get all of those notifications for builds like this, God roll guides, etc. So again, appreciate you guys. I will catch y'all in the next one. Peace.